Hey everyone, and welcome back to Citywide Blackout. Your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen, and it's a musical playground for this episode. Jordan Jones opens the show with a deep dive into his new singles, Break My Heart and Stumble. These songs represent a shift in his lengthy career, and we talk about past projects and what led to his new style, a more pop soul flow. Jordan and I go into the music business and what he's learned over the years. We talk about different ways to monetize music and the ideas he's been considering. Joining me now, he is no stranger to music, but is going in a brand new direction. A Canadian artist, Jordan Jones, joins me. Jordan, man, welcome to the show. It's cool to have you here.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
All right, of course, man, of course. All right, so you're definitely not a newcomer to music. You've worked in a number of different projects, different bands over the years. But this time you're doing something new. You're doing like a solo project. You have released two singles, Break My Heart and Stumble. One thing I'm wondering is like what happened that just said, okay, I'm going to go in this direction for like the new project?
So that was kind of an interesting, whatever. It was a very natural progression.
Hmm.
So I really didn't start really taking music seriously until I was about 26. I was in a punk ska band when I was, 20. But I didn't really start I didn't play guitar. It was for fun. We were like a garage band, played a couple shows, but we didn't last very long. Didn't touch music for a while, for probably about 5 years. And then at 26, I blew a disc in my neck. I'm going to take the long story because why not? So I blew a disc in my neck snowboarding when I was 26. My buddy, I had nothing to do. I was so bored sitting at home. And my buddy lent me his acoustic guitar and I just sat with it pretty steady. For the first month, I didn't want to give it back. After a month, he was like, dude, I need my guitar back. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to go get one. So I went and because I was starting to write, I was just playing around. And then I started to write. And I ended up instantly going on tour by accident. I had a band that came through Edmonton that asked, because I had a MySpace at that time. So they checked out my MySpace and they were like, hey man, do you want to come open for us? Our drummer, they were a rock band from Toronto. And they're like, our drummer can't make it. So we have to kind of change our setup. So we're going to put it on an acoustic set. Do you want to come open? I said, sure. I had never played like a real show before. And that was solo. So that was solo, but it was really singer-songwriter acoustic stuff. And I was just starting to understand what writing was really about, like I was just touching, the idea. We played the show. I was not working at the time. So they were like, dude, you want to jump on the tour with us? We'll just give you some of your time slots. And I was like, fuck yeah, there, bud. I'll be Canadian throughout this. Yeah, so I jumped on tour, did that for a hot minute. And then I got bored of doing the acoustic stuff. I naturally got into a band. So it was actually to hang out with a bunch of buddies and play a show. It was never meant to be a project. It was a project called the Blackstone. And it started off acoustically. So for the most part, we had two guitarists, and then we had actually we had three guitars. We had three acoustic guitars and then just some dude doing some percussion, right? And we hadn't practiced together before we played the show. We were all seasoned enough to be able to kind of wing it, and just jam. Like it wasn't an insane thing. And it progressively from that idea, we just were like, hey, that was fun. Let's do it again. Progressively over about a year, we went from this soft acoustic kind of band with a lot of slide guitar and heavy blues influence and that kind of stuff. I'm a big blues guy. And it went from that to this party rock band with a ton of slide guitar though. So it wasn't your typical blues rock band. It was a really interesting. We just ended up being hard party rock at the end. We added another. So then we added a drummer. We added a full drummer and then a bassist. And once that happened, we just kind of exploded kind of in our sound. We found our sound, and it was just this super aggressive, fun music with stories to tell. And I honestly I was lead guitarist in that project. So I didn't do a ton of vocals. I did backup vocals, gang vocals, that kind of stuff. And that was on purpose. I wanted to learn that role and see what it was to kind of sit back. It's still lead, but I wanted to sit back because there's 3 guitarists, and playing lead guitar in a band with 3 guitars. To me, the lead, you really actually got to find the pocket and play only. I swear, I always played more than 4 notes, but I always say I played like 4 notes that whole time in that whole project, because it was like, what else am I going to add? Like, it's all about adding those accents and just little sounds, and sometimes screaming. So, so it was good. From there, I worked with a band. Another group of people approached me to be the vocalist in a pop rock project. It was purely an idea. And at that point, I was just stretching. I was just playing around with sounds and seeing what I wanted to really get into, because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my solo career, right? So from there, man, we ended up recording. We went down to LA for a month, recorded our album, wrote and recorded down there. Had some fairly like half decent. That band was called The Marquee. On paper, it was really good. Our shows were super fun, high energy, stuff like that. But it still wasn't quite the sound that it was more of like a fun project, but it wasn't something that my soul and my heart was into, And I was in the Blackstone and the Marquee and that full time, and had a full-time job and a girlfriend. So I kind of burned out, right? Like something had to give. I was doing a lot. So I actually put music aside. I ended up moving to Nashville. It's funny. I quit music and moved to Nashville.
It's usually the opposite, actually.
Yeah, who does that? Like, I played the odd show while I was there, but I wasn't really it was straight up hard hobby. Like I almost barely picked up guitar, and like it's like I wanted to fall back. I needed a moment to fall back in love with music and figure it out. That's it. So, and it was that simple. I was overwhelmed. So in the meantime, I got back into it. I'm like, when I was a teenager, I was into punk, like hard punk. So my teenagey angstiness was like, fuck pop. Pop sucks, right? But I've grown to the point where I love pop and R&B, and I liked it when I was younger. So I grew up listening to a lot of like pop, R&B, jazz, soul, that kind of stuff. Like that was what was playing in the house a lot. But of course, you do your own thing when you're in your teens. And then that progressively, I kind of got stuck there for a hot minute. And once I started falling back in love with music, man, I was listening to pop music all the time. I was listening to R&B and hip hop all the time. And country, because my girlfriend at the time was a country artist. But yeah. So I just kind of fell in love with pop and R&B, and that's what brought me to it. I was like, when I got into the project, I feel like pop, I have the flexibility to pull from every genre that I've played in and learn from, but have that home base of like a pop. I mean, my vocally, I've learned and I've progressed substantially, right? From where I was when I was 26 to now. I've progressed substantially when it comes to vocals, purely because I'm always singing. And depending on what I'm singing to, I'm learning how to use that part of my voice. So it was a natural progression. I just kind of fell in love with that. I love vibes. And so that's where that R&B influence will come in. And then I love catchy melodies. I love it. And I love the idea of like having that low end with that top end, like that high top end coming over, and using that as the base structure of how to build my tracks. And then from there, we just fill in the blanks. Everything else is sugar, right? Like, so that's how I got into pop. Long story.
As a better man than I once said, long story short, too late.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So it sounds like musically you kind of like tasted everything. You did the punk rock phase, you did the ska phase, you did the rock, you did the R&B phase, and now you're back to more like pop and like R&B style. Do you think like this
Yeah.
is kind of like it for you in terms of like changing lanes, or are you still kind of testing some waters?
I would say this is it for me. This is something that this is a project I've thought about and planned for probably 5 years.
Wow. Very cool, man.
So yeah, this is something I've waited, like Break My Heart. I recorded that. I started recording that in 2020. I sat on that track for a year to wait to release it this year.
Wow. What happened that you wound up waiting?
I'm an indie artist, so financially looking at it from a business perspective, I wanted to be able to. I wasn't financially in the place at that time to be able to follow the tracks up quickly. So I wanted to build a brand. I want to build a brand as quickly as I possibly can without hurting the wallet too hard. I mean, I'm at the point where it doesn't matter. I'm committed now, so we were there. But that first track, I needed to honestly get my finances in order so that I can continuously kind of put out tracks this year. So that the idea is to put out single after single for this year, and then come out with repackage and have a couple extra tracks and release the EP probably in January.
Oh, cool.
January, February.
Nice, man.
So, yeah.
You talk about building the brand, and this sounds like a brand new Jordan Jones. How do you kind of create this new like version of yourself, especially where musically you have been in so many different places kind of over the years?
How do I build the brand? That's it. That's an interesting thing because, like, I guess I've learned. It's funny, you know what? Some of my best friends will say that I've known for years will say I've always done that. So, like, one day I'll listen to punk. I'll be into punk. I'll be into it hard. I'll look it. I'll dress it. I'll be it. And then, for example, in high school, I was hard punk. And then I went to Toronto, or to Ottawa, actually, to go visit some family in Ottawa. I came back with a full tracksuit, listened to Jay-Z, got some kicks. Like, so that's always been my thing. Like, but I'm 40. I'm in my 40s now. I'm at the point where I've tried kind of every avenue, and I know who I am now. Like, I've figured out what I want. I wouldn't have started this project had I not had a very, very clear vision as to where I want to go. So when it comes to building that brand, I've been around it enough. And I think naturally the brand is coming out because I've found a balance between everything,
Mm-hmm. I definitely hear that in both of the songs. You sound very, very confident. You sound very kind of practiced, like you've been doing this your whole career, even though you haven't been. But this definitely sounds like this is where you're comfortable.
Yeah, it is where I'm comfortable. It's weird because I think maybe I was always naturally, supposed to go this direction, but I didn't have the balls to pull the trigger on it. It's easy to, and like, nothing for blues or anything, because I'm a huge blues fan. I dig 1930s Delta blues. Blues for me is very easy to sing. Rock is very, rock, all that in that genre is all very easy to sing. I find with pop music, it fucking takes some work for me. And I think that's what intrigues me about it, is that it's not easy. It's not easy to write that catchy hook. It's not easy to sing at that high level all the time, right? So it is pushing, and it's constantly learning and understanding like these interesting melody changes and that kind of fun stuff. And I think that's what gravitated me to pop.
Okay, all right. I'd like to ask a bit about the stories behind Break My Heart and Stumble. Your two singles out now. What's kind of the story behind each of the songs?
Okay, so Break My Heart, both real songs.
Mm-hmm.
Break My Heart, especially the first one. Break My Heart was about my 10-year relationship ending. We were a month away from our wedding, and it went sour really quickly. So it was a huge surprise. That one was a hard one because we were together for 10 years. I caught her talking to another dude. She ended up marrying that guy, getting engaged 8 months after we broke up, and marrying within, I think it was like 14 months or something like that. And they're both country musicians, so it made ET Canada. So I couldn't even hide from it, right? Like I didn't get a chance to be able to shut my shit out and not have it still penetrate my reality. That one was like, Break My Heart is a very true story song, man. Like it put me in a funk. I was in a funk after that. I didn't know what to do. I was drinking a ton. I was doing a lot of shit I shouldn't have been doing. And I got to the point, man, like, thoughts of like suicide were hard there. Like it was very real, but I still remember, a moment where I woke up in the morning. I was really, really trying to get out of my funk, but I was devastated. I was truly devastated. And I remember one moment in the morning, I was like, you're going to end it or you're going to go for it, to myself. I was like, there's no point, or I'm just going to go and live life as best as I possibly can. And it was that moment that actually made me decide to start playing music again in that moment, because it was music originally. Music's always been a religion for me. So it helped. So I just started writing, and that song came out pretty quickly. So yeah, it's about my 10-year relationship going bad, a month away from the wedding, calling it off. I lost 26 grand from that, but it wasn't about the money at that point. It was about living. So that to me was kind of like my letter. And it was like my goodbye. It's my getting comfortable with the new, what's going on, saying my truth, like speaking my truth. Cause I never felt like I was able to speak my truth through that experience. I was just in the back burner. I mean, all my friends were like, man, I feel like you're in a reality show. We get to see it. And I'm the brunt of the joke. That's what it kind of felt like in the moment. That's where it felt to me. So I had to write it out and get my truth out, because I'm someone that always tries not to speak badly on anyone. So this one, it was kind of more of a letter to make sure that at least I said my truths and I can get it out and I can move past it. Big thing is moving past it. I did a ton of it took 2 years of me, like hard personal development, to get to the point where I could look in the mirror and be like, go get it. But it was those like hard, low moments that gave me the confidence to sing what I'm singing right now. Because if I'm not pushing, if I'm not chasing, what's the fucking point? If I'm not living and pushing and pushing and pushing, then there's no point in living. And that's what it was to me. So I just started chasing my fucking dreams again at 38 or 39, right? Like, which is not normal, but at the same time, I was like, whatever, it's a hobby. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it hard. And I'm going to do it to the caliber that I truly feel that I can, and I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning. And that's what I like about this. So that's what Stumble is. You go into Stumble and Break My Heart are totally different. Like they're both pop, but they're totally different. And I wanted to, Stumble's about my new relationship, my partner. She's fucking amazing. I actually have another song coming out in 2 months. I believe tentatively it should be out June 10th, called Flawless. It's also about her. So Stumble is about getting into a new relationship and knowing, and after doing like a bunch of personal development, trying to figure my shit out, trying to get in the right headspace. And obviously I don't want to get into another relationship and I don't want it to, I'm going into it with the intent to have a successful relationship. And communication obviously is like super, super important in any relationship. So that's kind of what Stumble is about. It's about being in a new relationship, and it's about having the ability to have open conversation, call me out on my bullshit, but don't give up without at least calling me out and getting a chance to like, let's hash it out. And that's from both people, right? Like relationships and building a relationship is something that takes a ton of communication and commitment on both sides. And I felt like I needed that. And that's what Stumble is about, because I didn't necessarily have that in my 10-year relationship. We had great communication, but it wasn't the right communication, right? It wasn't the hard conversations that you need to have in order to level up together. And so it's like putting your ego aside and just being like, if I stumble, let me know. That's what Stumble's about, ultimately, and being in love and being in a new relationship. Flawless is about just, the next one's about being in love and fucking all day. Honestly, I'm pretty excited to share it. It's a fun track.
It's very honest of you. I like that. Do you feel like you're a different person between these two songs, Break My Heart and Stumble?
100%. Yes. I think, and what I've heard from others is actually feeling and hearing the progression, that I've made from being super down to being in a pretty darn good place, and I think that's what's cool about music in general. And you can, you get a chance to actually, especially when you're writing about your shit, and trying to be vulnerable. The big thing is being vulnerable. So I think for sure there's 100% of progression. I hope that comes across when a listener is listening to it, that, oh shit, he's actually hard progressed to get to this point, because whatever I'm doing, I'm genuinely doing and being in the moment. That's the goal. So, and I hope that my music or my songs reflect that genuine moment that I'm trying to capture in that time, where I'm at there and then. So like in 10 years, I should be writing about something totally different, like 100%. There should be that natural lyrical progression and sounds, most likely. I mean, I get bored easily, so I think ADD kicks in then. But that's where I think, I'm that's where I believe, like, where pop music has allowed me to kind of give that hub and kind of capture little moments. And I think pop music has progressed to the point where you can capture different sounds and different elements from genres, like large amount, like all the genres. So I just wanted to be able to have that flexibility.
Do you feel like this version of you, musically speaking, is a more honest and authentic version than the version of you that was in the bands in the past?
I would say yes, like 100% yes, because this is me. This is all me. The Marquee was more of like I'm gonna try something out. Like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't on my heart. My soul wasn't into it. I had a ton of fun while I was in it, but it wasn't the project that shook me. The Blackstone was genuinely who I was at that moment, 100%. The Blackstone was, I'm still brothers with them. They're still my brothers. We still hang out. I still go for beers. We still, spend time together and support each other, in the projects that we are doing. We've all gone totally separate ways. So some is like hard, heavy metal, and others 8-bit arcade game music, so, because I have one of the guys, the drummer, he was a writer.
Oh, cool.
And so he likes to kind of get into some interesting stuff. He's talented, fucking super talented guy. But yeah, I would say genuinely, again, it's genuine. This is who I am now, and this is well thought out, and patiently waiting to finally get to this point where I can share my passion again. For me. Yeah.
And speaking of sharing your passion, I saw on your Instagram you were talking about like shows in the past, about like going on tour, and obviously this is something that a lot of musicians are really planning. Again, COVID is down, people places are like opening up, and doing a tour is a lot more realistic than it was, say, a year ago. Is this something that you're kind of working on right now, or is the focus more on just building up the music?
Focus up this year for me. So the plan for me is to build the music this year, build the way so that I can monetize, so that I can capitalize on touring. Right? So touring is about pushing everything else to and actually making money nowadays. So I'm putting in some time and work in the investment, and I'm like, at the end, I am planning a tour for next year, a couple mini tours. we can take all the data and figure out, like, I want to come down to the States, you know, and hit little areas of the States. Canada is an interesting place to tour. You either have to do west or east, because there's not a whole lot going on in the middle. Like, there's like venues, right? So the venues are pretty slim in the middle of Canada. So those are kind of like, Winnipeg's got a good scene. But honestly, that's kind of it for scenes. I mean, I don't know. That's whatever.
It's kind of the same way here, actually, too, because like the East Coast has a great scene. Of course, you have Boston, Philly, everything in between. The West Coast, you've got, you know, LA and everything there. The middle, you got some stuff. Of course,
you just fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
It's like you're filling in the blanks, right?
Exactly.
So it's not scenes are awesome. It's just not as much going on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the plan, is this year just to keep pushing music and focus on music. It's trying to find that work-life balance, because I'm an indie artist, because I have a full-time job, and I have a family. So, you know, I have a 9-year-old stepdaughter. So like planning a tour is definitely something that I have to execute properly, so that I can still have my 9 to 5, go do my tour, and have it so that my family doesn't want to leave me. So
very key. I would say take your stepdaughter, have her work the merch table. Everyone will buy from her. She'll be like, "Oh, she's so cute. Exactly. Here's my money."
We sell the crap out of everything for sure.
Absolutely. It's marketing, man. It's all about the marketing, you know?
yeah, exactly.
The adorable like merch kid. Everyone will be like, "Oh, you're so cute. Here's my wallet."
Okay, here's my money. And as long as she's guaranteed, as long as she gets to take a percentage, you know, like she'll take a percentage.
Yeah.
But I'm cool with it.
Got to give her a cut. Come on, you know, you can't.
Everyone's got to get their cut, man.
Exactly. Given that you have so much on your plate, though, with like the job and the family, does this mean that music is unlikely to become like a full-time job for you?
No, this is actually my goal. My goal is
cool.
my goal is to really push it to become so that I can put my 9 to 5 aside. And that's why I think I've kind of waited on everything, so that I can, so I want to execute it as best as possible. You know, it's such an insane industry, but you can only be as smart as I'll be as smart as I possibly can with the releases and the projections and the planning. I mean, I've got enough business background now that I'm just trying to use all of the knowledge that I've learned, you know, and being down in Nashville, and still, though I wasn't playing, I was very much in the scene because my girlfriend at the time was. So I've always been around the scene regardless of what I'm doing or not. So just learning like what works, paying attention, because she was signed, right? She has a pub deal and a record deal. So I was around that. So I got to see kind of like the progression and what worked, what didn't, you know. And now, I mean, it's, again, if you're not thinking outside of the box, like I always want to progress and kind of push the limits, but think of it from a business perspective. And I think that's one of the downfalls that a lot of artists, you know, we get caught. I'm guilty for it. I'm guilty of it when I was younger. I get caught. I just want to be an artist and I just want to make the music and everything else will come. It's not how it works, especially nowadays. So attacking this project with a business smarts, you know, a business plan, like a actual 5-year plan, an actual 3-year plan, is what my plan is, so that I can step away from my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So
I would say, and I say this a lot, anyone who is expecting that they'll just, you know, like make it big someday, that it'll just like magically happen, never going to happen.
Yeah,
You got to have a plan, especially these days, because it's become so hard to like monetize music. It's so damn hard these days. You either have to have the business mindset or work with someone who does. Because
exactly.
The illusion of some label calling you and saying, "Hey, here's like 6 figures," never going to happen. You'll be waiting forever for that one. You'll like die waiting for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to work. Like nowadays, it's always been that way, but it's even more now than ever, because everything is so accessible, man. Like it's so easy to put your shit out. So there's a ton of talent out there. And what happens is the talent that are willing to work your ass off, put your whole you into it, that's what's going to help. You'd still never know, but that'll give to me, I feel that'll give me an edge, because man, I said it before, it's a religion. And when I made the decision, I'm an all in and all out with a lot of stuff, not everything, I guess I've been told, but I try to be all in or all out. Like if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. If I'm not, I'm not. And that's what it was when I started this project. The intent is to get it so that I can do it, because I want to do it for a living, but it's going to take a ton of work. I've sat in the back seat with other projects in the past, because because I didn't fully believe in the project. Probably, like, I enjoyed myself with the Blackstone. I totally enjoyed myself. Did I believe that we were a band that could just make it? No, but it was pure joy. It was like when I'm on stage, it was nothing but like, I want being in the moment and having the biggest smile and having all the fun. And I want it all at this point, go back to either I do it or I don't. I'm going to live or I'm going to die. If I'm going to live, I'm going to live, and I'm going to push it. So that's where I'm at right
I like it. I like it a lot. Given that you already have a pretty strong history working with like other bands, like this gives you an edge when it comes to getting your name out there and being like recognized, or is that just like the past? Is it that totally separate from what you're doing now?
It can help because I've made connections, but realistically, not really. Realistically, if I was to think that I don't have to work as hard because I've already worked hard in the past, if I thought that, there's no way that I'd be talking to you right now. Right? So, no, I would say the idea of it can, because I just know a bunch more people just from hanging out with a bunch of people and playing shows and doing stuff. But at the same time, the project's so different too. So the fans are different, right? Like the fans are different. I'll always have my fans of like my friends and my family. But when it comes to fans, like my fans from the Blackstone are definitely not going to like what I'm doing right now. Like it's polar opposites,
I get you.
Maybe from marquee, but still, that's still rock. It was always rock.
Okay.
So.
All right. I want to switch gears now and ask about Velveteen Music, because you mentioned them on a lot of your socials. Who are they, and how'd you get to working with them?
So Velveteen Music, they're a studio and they're kind of a record label, but they're still working on that. So Brad Simons, we used to kind of play, like he's a lead guitarist. He's the guy that owns it. He's the lead producer on the stuff. 5 years ago, we used to play a lot of shows together. Like it would be the odd show where he's playing for someone and the Blackstone's making noise on stage. He's a stupid talented dude, like stupid talented. We talked probably about 7 years ago. I was like, man, I want to record with you. It was when he first started recording people. And I was like, I'd love to record with you one day. And it just never happened because I put music aside. Life happened. I moved to Nashville and all that fun stuff. And it just never happened. So when I did decide, when I went through my shit and then decided I was going to record, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to work with Brad because I trusted him. You got to really trust and have that relation. It's not just about going in to record a song. It's about vibe and how you shit, like how everyone is, and like having no ego, putting all that shit aside and creating the best art you possibly can in the moment. And I felt Velveteen was the closest I'll ever get to that, because I trusted Brad. I trust his talent. I trust his word, and because I was venturing into something I'd never done before, I'd never really committed to recording pop music. So when I approached him, I said, this is my plan. This is my vision. I also want to make sure that we have anyone that's on our team is in the same kind of vibe. I want us to have fun, and I want to put out the best art possible. And to me, they were the right fit. I get along with everyone. They're all super talented. They're all like, I know we have the Junos up here, the Juno Awards, and collectively, Brandon, who is one of the lead producers on my tracks, on the last 2 tracks, like sorry, Flawless, so the one coming out and this one, he's nominated for 2 Junos this year. Bradley Simon, who is my bud, he's nominated for one, and then Brad Smith, who does the mastering, he's got nominated for 2. So again, we talked to a business, we go from the business side, like they checked all the boxes, right? Like I'm working with some guys that really know what they're doing. They're still growing and pushing themselves. And it's just an open space. So it was just a no-brainer, and it still is a no-brainer. I absolutely love working with those guys. We also have Randor that is on the team as well. And honestly, we shoot the shit, we have fun, and then we get to work. And to me, that's what the studio is. Like it's kind of a balance. We have a good, solid balance approach. I go in, shoot the shit, we hang out. I'll bring in some wine or some scotch or whatever I'm feeling that day. We'll have fun. We'll have some laughs. And there's times where we're just fucking hard hunkering down and just putting in the work. So it's not easy. Like there's times, again, when it comes to these vocals, when I'm trying something new, I'm not hitting the notes properly. I'm a stickler to that. Like it bothers me to the point where I need to make sure that I can hit that note, because I don't want to do anything on the tracks that I can't do live, and that's a big thing with pop, man. Still, like it's a hard balance, because I'm pushing myself in the studio. So it's just making sure that I can continue and grow. It's just a muscle, right? If you just keep working it, it's going to grow. It's going to get stronger. It's going to get better.
Exactly. All right. Well, Jordan, man, this has been a lot of fun talking to you. Definitely loving the music you've got here. Of course, Flawless, you mentioned that coming out later in June. But past that, what do you have down the road?
Down the road, so we're going to have Flawless come out. I think we're kind of let that ride. We're pushing a lot of radio. I just got added to another 2 radio stations today. So we're pushing radio right now pretty hard. So we'll see. We're hoping with Stumble, we should start seeing more radio stations pick up Stumble. We'll do the same with Flawless, because it's a pretty radio friendly jam as well. And then I plan on releasing another single early fall. I'm going to take I got to let my bank account kind of get a little, or my visa, not so much of a bank account. I got my visa needs to come down a bit. But I'll put out one other single in early fall, like early fall, almost at the end of summer. And then either I do another song late fall, no later than November, because no one wants to release anything unless I'm releasing Christmas shit. I'm not touching it, which I probably won't, I'll be honest, unless for some reason it gives me free money and I did the 2 for a Christmas song. Then I'll
it's an easy sell, It's the easy sell.
Yeah, exactly. And then January, February, I'll package everything, put it out with two new songs, repackage everything as an EP, and then go from there. And then start, because then I'll have something tangible. By then I'll have all my merch kind of planned, all of my, tour and stuff kind of set up, all that kind of fun stuff for next year. Just kind of slowly creeping up on it so that when I do go on tour, I've done the broke tour musician in a van, and I've lived in my van as well for a while when I was younger. It's a whole nother story though, but that's what I want to do. I just want to make sure everything's kind of there and try to monetize on other things. Like nowadays you got to think outside the box. You talked about monetizing music. It's so hard to monetize music nowadays, so it's so different. We can monetize anything. So if you like, to me, an artist, we can use our brand and we use our name, but there's so many different avenues to make money other than music once you have that established a bit. So I almost started a fashion line when I was in my 20s. So my thought process when it comes to like merch is like, I don't want it to be a typical band shirt with a fucking Jordan Jones, break my heart. However, I probably will have that, but that won't be the main direction. Like, I actually want to have some like real clothes, like something that people will wear, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a billboard for me, and that's where it's like, you can monetize by making videos. If you're a wine taster, you really like wine, figure out how to get a following and do a YouTube channel and start tasting wine and seeing how to grow that. There's so many different ways to monetize. And I think and then we got NFTs nowadays, man, coming in pretty hard. So capitalizing on all that, I don't know enough about NFT and all that kind of, I'm old, man. So like, that's something I'm learning. But I think capitalizing on that kind of stuff, for next year, having everything kind of set up so that it's easier for me to step away from my 9 to 5, rather than being that broke ass musician busking on the streets, trying to, for a slice of pizza, like, been there, done that. Don't want to do it again.
Exactly. All right. Well, Jordan, man, once again, a lot of fun talking about this. Definitely looking forward to Flawless. And for the folks at home, you go to im.jordanjones on Instagram. Follow him there. Follow him on Spotify. Like his stuff. Share it. All that engagement helps like so much for kind of like building the brand and building the presence. And Jordan, and I'm sure that we'll be talking very soon down the road.
Awesome, brother. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hi, this is singer Kate Eppers, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
And now it's break time. Enjoy Break My Heart, one of the recent singles by Jordan Jones. And when we come back, I'm talking to Boston's Jen Kearney. Recently, Jen was on a 2-year tour of the UK and London, which served as part of the inspiration for her new EP, Atlantic. We talk about her experiences overseas, as well as the sound of the EP, a sampler of sorts for an album coming out later this year.
Been ripping off my bonds, baby, trying to wake my mind. I wanna see you. I've had a breakthrough. I wanna share this with you. Gripping on these signs, baby, trying to see your eyes, but I just see blue. No, you don't bleed through. Why'd you have to be so cruel? Girl, I had to move on slow, learning how to let you go. Help me, I gotta know. Did you mean to break my heart? Or were you lying from the start? Why'd you tear us apart? Oh, now here we are. Take a look at what you did. 10 years and your heart just quit. Was it something I missed? I guess this is it. Breathing better for whatever reason. I've been healing, believe it. God knows I still love you. Blowing shit got crazy, baby. I barely got through, and that's the truth. I almost killed myself over you. Girl, I had to move on slow, learning how to let you go. Help me, I gotta know. Did you mean to break my heart? Or were you lying from the start? Why'd you tear us apart? Oh, now here we are. Take a look at what you did. 10 years and your heart just quit. Was it something I missed? I guess this is it. Did you mean to break my heart? Or were you lying from the start? Why'd you tear us apart? Did you mean to break my heart? Or were you lying from the start? Why'd you tear us apart? Well, now here we are. Take a look at what you did. 10 years and your heart just quit. Was this something I missed? I guess this is it. I guess this is it.
My next guest, if you live in Boston, if you're part of the music scene, you know the name. Jen Kearney joins me. She has a new EP out called Atlantic, and quite an amazing story that began back in 2018. But before we go into that, Jen, welcome to the show. It's so cool to have you here, and I'm kind of surprised we never did this before.
I know, me too. Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy it's sunny out, like you said.
Yes, it's actually
It's nice.
I know, like I look out the window, it's like, oh, it's not dark out. Weird.
Yeah, it's literally a bright spot in the moon. Yeah, for sure. You know.
Exactly. So you've got this new EP out, Atlantic, which is an
Yeah.
absolutely amazing collection of music. But the story that
Thank
goes
you.
into this thing begins back in 2018 when you were on
Yeah.
tour in the UK and London area for about 2
Yeah.
years. How did that
Mhm.
happen? Because that's such a cool experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, I actually it kind of goes back to 2006, to be honest, because I was on this site. I'm totally dating myself, but whatever. It's the way it is. What it is. CD Baby. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, I
Like,
do. Very
it was
fondly.
like the first. Yeah, it was like the first online place you could buy CDs, and so I put my CD on there long ago, back in 2006, one of the first ones I did, and this guy in England was like the programmer for this Craig Charles Funk and Soul show on BBC Six, and found my disc and like loved it and asked me for it. And his name was Snowboy. That's his nickname. Mark Crotgrove is his name, but he's a Latin jazz percussionist, but he also was this program director. So he got all my CDs and like would play them in rotation on this funk and soul show that's on BBC Six. And then as years progressed, I would just send him whatever album I released, and he would love it. And, so he ended up covering two of my more like Latin jazz kind of songs, because he's a Latin percussionist and has like a 9-piece huge band that's really famous over there called Snowboy in the Latin section. So he recorded in about, I guess, 2016 or so, two of my songs on his album, and then flew me over there in 2017 to tour. And it just went so well, and like I made so many connections and played bigger clubs and stuff, that I just decided when I got back in 2018 to just go back and see what happens, So
Wow.
that's what I did. Yeah, I just bounced over there. Like you could do that
For just
in
for
2018.
just a couple years, no big deal.
Yeah.
How
Well,
do
it was a lot. It was a lot more work than that, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
of course,
for
of
sure.
course.
Yeah.
And I'm actually curious about the work that goes into making something like this happen. I mean, like a 2-year tour, there's so much to consider. It's not just like a week or two. You got to consider just how you're going to survive for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I just did the same thing over there that I did here, which was arrange to teach music, as like sort of the day job. And then, but on the visa I was on, you could only do, it was an artist visa, so you can only do music. If you work at like a supermarket or anything else, you're going to get in a lot of trouble with the home office over there. So I just made it work. I had some connections and friends, and so I had some really good gigs and kind of a band over there that I had toured opening for Snowboy with some of his bands. So I just kind of grabbed those guys and like booked a bunch of gigs, and then just would teach, kids and adults like I do here during the day, and just everything I could possibly do, little gigs everywhere. Yeah. So
You make
hustling.
it sound so easy, like
Well,
you really make it sound,
yeah.
or maybe not easy is the right
It
word,
wasn't.
but you make it sound like casual. You make it sound very like matter of fact, second nature.
Yeah, no, it definitely was not. But I'm glad it seems like it. I mean, it was a gargantuan effort for sure, but it was kind of like also I just knew, and it was at a time in my life where I just felt like it's kind of now or never, and this is such a like graduate program for your soul for like growing, So I just have to go kind of experience this and live in a foreign country and see what, and yeah, so I'm kind of spontaneous like that, whether that's a good thing or not. But just like I'm just gonna go do this and, kind of like worry about what happens later. you know?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because
Yeah.
I think if you overthink it too much, you never would have gone. You would have been like, "Oh, what could
Oh,
happen?"
never. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, years ago I had day jobs in cubicles and I took the plunge to say like I got to quit this and just do music full time. So, I've taken all these kinds of plunges before and I think it's always been worth it. So this one was truly also worth it as hard as it was as well.
You mentioned earlier that it was like a graduate program for the soul. So did this really like stand
Yeah.
out from your past plunges?
Yeah, because I've never lived in a completely foreign country on my own with really not any I don't know, I mean support system that you have at home, as far as I mean I had friends over there but not anybody I'd want to like burden too much with, you know what I mean? So it's just you're sort of on your own and figure it out, like figure out this visa thing and figure out this like, crazy just we I heard from people over there that kind of the common joke was we both have the same language across the pond, but it's such a different like that's about all we have in common, really, like other than watching each other's shows and music and things. I mean, it is essentially a foreign country. Luckily, it's English speaking, so it's a little easier. But it's, in essence, it's still like, you're 3,800 miles away from home and across an ocean. So
Yeah, definitely.
growth has to happen.
Oh yeah, and in that situation, I think it's going to be like really like big growth. But what would you say was like the best and maybe the most challenging part of doing this?
The best was I definitely got to play some amazing shows that I kind of had like a foot in the door going over there. So I played at like clubs like Ronnie Scott's and big huge festivals over there that were thousands of people. So it was just like kind of this like step up and you're sort of a little exotic being from America over there, a little bit. So it's like it's a little it was nice to feel momentum in the career part of it for sure. Challenges were definitely like it was challenging to afford. The dollar is not, it's not equal to the pound. And so it was and I had some visa issues. I was scheduled to come home and the home office had kept my passport for like an extra 3 months because they were reviewing it. So there were things like that just like kind of, throws your whole world off kilter a little bit more, even though you're already kind of off over there. So yeah, I mean, and then everyday challenge, everyday life, just whatever normal challenges there are, it's kind of a little bit amplified, I'd say, when you're figuring it out somewhere else,
Definitely. And I think that
Yeah.
that is the only like situation where someone from Boston would ever be considered exotic.
Yeah, I know, right? And I would try to like turn on the sort of like really heavy accent for them, and they were just kind of like, "Oh, well, it just sounds like you're Irish." And I'm like, "All right, well, yeah,
Good enough. Good enough.
I guess that's true. I guess it's kind of like an Irish brogue, but way less graceful, right? I think
Way less graceful.
Ben Affleck said that. Yeah,
It's way less graceful.
yeah.
Definitely.
So
All
yeah.
right. Now this may be a bit of a tricky question, but any standout shows?
Oh yeah, definitely. Ronnie Scott's is like their really famous jazz club, and I played there probably 6 times or something, and it's just kind of thrilling to play there every time. And one of the times we played, I think Thundercat was in the audience, and like Jennifer Hudson. So people just like show up there because it's just this really cool, swanky Soho place, and yeah, it's just kind of a thrill to be on that stage. It's really legendary, and I had a friend in Snowboy's band that was the she was a saxophone player in Jules Holland's big band. So I went to like one of their rehearsals and stuff. Yeah. So it was just kind of like things like that were just really pretty thrilling to be like, wow, you know, this is cool.
Did you get the chance to meet any artists that you've been like a longtime fan of over there?
One of the gigs that we did was opening for Terry Reid, which I understand. The funny, I wasn't like really, I wouldn't say I know much of his music, but I thought the story was pretty interesting and that he was pretty like handled it well. And that story is that he turned down being asked to be in Led Zeppelin. I know, as the lead singer. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, but he seemed pretty like well adjusted and okay with it. I mean, obviously it was a long time ago and he's an older man now. And I think he had a pretty good storied career on his own, but still, you know, it's like, wow.
You got to wonder, like, what if he had said
yes?
Oof.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really meet anybody that, you know, I've been like listening to all my life and that is super famous, like Paul McCartney or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I met a lot of really cool people in the business that, you know, it was just a cool place to be for sure. Yeah,
definitely. How would you say that experience changed you either as a person or as an artist?
I mean, I don't think you have a choice. You if you sort of reposition yourself and all your perspective like that, there's no doubt, you know, unless you're like a robot. We just talked about creepy robots a minute ago. But yeah, I don't think you can not grow if you kind of put yourself out there like that. Not much choice. So I guess, having to adapt to a different culture and rhythm. And I mean, it was funny because it was kind of this like shell shock. Like when I got there, I was like, wow, if I open my mouth, I'm so different. I mean, London's pretty cosmopolitan. So but still, you still sort of like, hey, where are you, you know, like, are you Canadian or American? And at times I wanted to lie and say I was Canadian, but because Donald Trump was still president at the time.
Yeah, definitely. Did that like come up a lot for you? Were people kind of like asking you?
It did, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And I mean, of course I was, you know, I mean, most of the people I was hanging out with were pretty liberal people because musicians, you know, and artists, but it was something else. And so you're kind of this, you know, you're just sort of like thrust into this whole different culture. And like, I got so used to hearing a British accent that when I came home, it was also a shell, you know, it was like, you're just a little shocked at first and kind of, you have to just like sort of give yourself a few weeks to kind of acclimate to the whole different rhythm, you know, whole different climate as far as even just going outside and it's a little bit more, you know, drizzly over there or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting, you know.
After 2 years, did you ever think of just staying there for good?
Well, yeah, it's a little more complicated than you'd think. The artist visa that I was on lasts for 2 years exactly. And then you kind of have to get out and figure out whether you're going to come back on the same kind of visa or go for this, you know, basically there's like a more complex visa that you can go for 5 years over there. And then if you want after the 5 years, you can become a citizen, which I don't know that I, you know, would permanently head over there, but I considered it. I was trying to get that visa as I literally left January 8th of 2020 to come home and got home. And then, you know, March, the world was shut.
Good timing.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Right. Yeah, I guess it was because honestly, it would have been hard to be over there locked in lockdown like that.
Yeah, because like, you know, we have of course had the shutdown here, but you could still go places. You could like nothing was stopping you from getting in a car and just like driving somewhere. But yeah, over there, total lockdown. Like,
yeah, and I you know, I mean, with no artistic work over there, it was like, what would I have done? So yeah, I'm grateful that it, you know, not that it's horrible that it happened at any time, but I'm glad I got home, I guess, right before something like that
exactly
went down.
Now all this I know kind of factored into Atlantic, like, you know, these last like, few years, everything you experienced was really kind of a part of making Atlantic happen. But how so?
I mean, I was just writing a lot when I was there, obviously being inspired by a new place. And I mean, I'm kind of always songwriting. I'm not the fastest at it. I tend to like come up with a lot of ideas, but not necessarily finish them, and just a lot of fragments of lyrics and stuff. But I really came up with some stuff that I really liked, and I sort of chose, two to kind of like really hone in on, and then two from here that I also honed in on, and that's why it's called Atlantic, because I just felt like it was just such a, in both cases it was kind of extreme, to be over there and like I said, this whole growth experience, and it was kind of went by fast in 2 years, and it's a whirlwind, and then come home, and then there's this huge pandemic, and home is all different, and I'm trying to scramble to get my life back, and so yeah, I guess I just chose the 4 songs that were the most, I guess, finish one thing, but also sort of reflective of what's gone down.
Ah, yes. Now, this EP is almost like a sampler of sorts because you're going to be releasing a
Yeah.
full-length LP later on this year.
Yeah.
Will the two be kind of in the same ballpark, or are we talking polar opposites?
Well, I think I'm going to put the 4 songs on the LP also, so it'll be like an extension of the theme, and a lot, like I said, it's a lot of the songs are pretty finished, but probably need some tweaking, and then obviously I need to get back in the studio and get that all done. So yeah, so I think it'll just be following a theme, as I can't write an album that's just sort of like a bunch of singles. I've never been that kind of person. Like, it always kind of follows a bit of a theme, so
how do you approach like the writing process, given that the album isn't just going to be, as you said, a bunch of singles?
I mean, I feel like the lyrics and things that I have fragments of are sort of, whenever you're writing stuff at a certain point of your life, I feel like it's kind of like frozen in amber of that period of your life. So it's kind of ends up being a snapshot whether you intend it to or not. And so it ends up being a cohesive thing. And I think in the case of, at least this EP, it's taken on this whole like ocean. Some of the lyrics and things ended up being sort of oceanic, and so I don't really limit myself to say like it has to all. It's not. I have written a concept album in the past, but I'm not really like approaching this one that way. But I do love bands like Pink Floyd and people that will do a whole real storyline and theme and concept album, so I do love that. I'm a sucker for that. So I can't say how I will do it, but it just sort of always ends up like that.
I get you.
For me anyway. Yeah.
All right. So, like a lot of artists, you have been getting back on stage recently. You played a release show at the Burn on March 6th, following the release of Atlantic. And Burn is one of my favorite places. I absolutely love that spot. Is that like a common go-to for you when it comes to your shows?
Yes, I love that place. I absolutely love the people that run it. Like Tom Bianchi is one of my favorite humans, and his wife Danielle are like, they're just like family to me. So that room just feels like home, and I just love the vibe in there. So yeah, that was a different, definitely the first choice.
Was this your first show since COVID?
No, actually, we started. We played a couple of like the weird, crazy masked behind plexiglass shows back in like November, I would say, of 2020, and then so just like a few scattered things, and then we had a little residency in Waltham last June. I would say we started really ramping back up. So I guess I've been playing sort of regularly, not crazy, since about last summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did it feel to get back on stage again?
Great. I mean, people were just, it was like a burst of joy, for us all to be out there like that. It's still one of those things where it's like in the back of your head now, there's just like this little, like a little bit of a just apprehension, I suppose, as far as, like how long are we going to be able to do this, so we better sort of do it. Yeah. yeah, I mean, it's been great, and I just hope we can beat all the variants into at least submission enough that boosters and vaccines will stabilize the situation, and live
Hmm.
music can. I mean, it seems like it's pretty booming out there.
Oh
So
yeah, definitely. And of course, the
yeah,
news of the day is that you no longer have to wear a mask for traveling by like plane or
right,
train. That's all lifted now.
yeah,
So I think
right,
we're gonna see maybe some more folks kind of getting out there, seeing their bands on tour, kind of following them around, like like you do.
right. Like the olden days.
The
Yeah.
olden days, yes, we can definitely talk about the olden days of
Right.
CD Baby and MySpace.
Yeah, yeah, right. I know both. Yep.
Gather round, children, as I tell you the
Yeah.
dark days before Facebook.
There was a man named Tom, and he had.
And he was
Yeah.
everyone's friend.
Right.
You
He
can
was
always
sitting at a computer.
you can always count on Tom.
Yeah.
Oh
Tom.
man, good old Tom, good old reliable
Yep.
Tom.
Yep.
Well, speaking of reliable, like, do you feel that we're in a place now where you can like plan things like a multi-show tour or plan, say, for like the fall now?
I mean, I feel like I'm just gonna do those things, and if they end up having to be, I mean, it's kind of like everything in the world is just sort of TBA, I guess, or TBD, to be determined. So yeah, I just think it's, we just kind of have to come at it with the mentality of like, well, let's get back out there and see, obviously as safely as we can keep everything, you know. But yeah, I think it's just book the shows as always, and hope that at that time it's going to happen. So that's the approach I'm taking, is just to keep getting on the road, so to speak.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. Now, going back a bit to Atlantic, I'm curious, like musically, do you feel like you went in any new directions with this one?
I did, yeah, for sure, definitely. Um, Especially songs like The Magician, which I wrote in London. I just sort of had this whole like in- Beatles inspiration of using a mellotron and some synths on that, which I don't think I've ever really put synth on anything, and it's pretty synth heavy, that song. And yeah, just I I've been sort of listening to a lot of like newer artists that I just think are doing insanely cool things with like people like Corey Henry, and that are just like these sort of jazzers. So they're using these like really sophisticated chord progressions and movements of the way they will put songs together. So I don't know, I feel like I've been a little bit more inspired to be a little more adventurous with how to write songs, how to approach the format. And yeah, and again, I mean, I think living in a different place, you're just bound to kind of come away with this kind of like, there's just a different vibe. I can't really explain it. It's one of those like visceral things that you're just, when you're over in England, you feel this way. When you're over in America, you feel this way. It's just very different. And so I think it just kind of came out naturally.
Have you always been that way when it comes to releasing like new music? Do you try and sort of, try something different or go with like a different route for like the different albums?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I mean, no one likes to stagnate on the same thing. Like, I think you should always sound like you, but I think um yeah, I don't know. Just for me, I'm always kind of like, wow, how does that work? Or what's that, so I guess in this case, yeah, I was really there was a lot of curiosity, and just sort of trying to push myself a little bit out of some comfort zones, you know, and just being a little bit more adventurous with everything overall, I would say.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Of course, we talked about the new LP coming out later this year, but what do you have planned for like your summer?
We just have a few scattered shows. I'm really working on trying to get, it's been hard to kind of gauge what to do, because it's sort of, I feel like it's sort of opened all back up like so suddenly. And I don't really have any like staff, like I don't have a booking agent or it's all me. So it's yeah, like just trying to figure out some shows we can do around so I'm sort of more focusing, I guess, on whatever shows come up for the summer, great. I'm hoping I can, if I can sneak into any festivals at this point, those get booked up pretty early. But again, I don't know what this year is like. And it seems like there's a lot of makeup shows. So I don't know that getting into something like that is like feasible necessarily. So we don't have a ton booked, but I think I'm focusing on kind of like the fall and the end of the year with the release of the new stuff. So I'll probably be a combination of playing some shows pretty locally, East Coast tours kind of thing, and then getting in the studio and finishing up that, and then focusing on, sort of late this year, next year.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you do your own booking, and certainly that's always a challenge. But is it kind of a old hat for you because you've been doing this for like a little while now? You kind of like know everyone?
Yeah. I don't know, because I was away for 2 years, and it does seem like there's been some changing of the guard. So I wouldn't say, I don't think you can ever take it for granted that you just sort of rest on those connection laurels. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm brand new to the whole thing. So old hat, I guess, in some senses, but also totally new navigation at the moment. Like, because none of us, everybody's vying for gigs right now, and some venues have closed, some new ones are opening, and so it's just kind of like I'm just trying not to feel like I have to scramble too much at the moment. I'm just kind of trying to roll with it and just book things logically. And I also have 5 or 6 amazing bandmates that I got to consider their schedules and figure that out. And so, it's always a lot of logistics.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I actually want to get your take on the changes. Of course, like you said, we have seen some places close and we have seen some places open.
Right.
What was your reaction when you first saw places like Great Scott when they when they announced that they were closing down?
Yeah, I mean, just really a sadness, because I come from the Boston that still had TT the Bears, and you played there, and you played the Middle East, you played Great Scott, you played, so yeah, a lot of places I feel like it's always heartbreaking when they close, but especially for this reason, it was just such a bummer that some places couldn't reopen. And there is this amazing, I really hope Wally's, which is in, Wally, yeah, it's kind of like where Berkeley kids kind of like cut their teeth in jazz and funk and everything else. And, a lot of my friends and some of my bandmates have played residencies there. And I think that they're okay. I don't know if they're going to reopen anytime soon. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been really hard to see some of those legendary places go down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think you had an impact on the Boston scene?
I hope so. I have no idea, Hope so.
What do you think that might be?
My impact on the Boston scene?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I hope, that's a great question. I'm kind of, I don't know. What impact do you hope to have with your music in general on any scene? It's just connecting with the audience. That's my main reason for anything. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that will go and play just thinking okay, cool, we're background music and we're just going to get this paycheck at the end. I'm oh, I hope these lyrics are hitting you. I hope this music is moving you, that's where I kind of come from and why I do it. So I hope that's, impactful for people listening. I don't know. I don't think that's a question for me, I guess.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jen, definitely great talking to you. And certainly I'm loving Atlantic, folks. If you haven't been checking it out, definitely give it a listen. 4 amazing songs and much more to come. You have shows happening later on in the summer, and you can check all this out at Jen Kearney KEARNEY.com. Follow her socials, follow her on Spotify, all the platforms. Engagement is a huge help. And
Yes.
Jen, hopefully we'll be get the chance to talk some more soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
Okay, everyone, that brings this episode to a close. Big thanks to Jordan and Jen for joining me, and definitely check out their work. Their music is so very, very cool. You can follow the show on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. Get at me at citywidemax@yahoo.com, and check out this show wherever you find podcasts, as well as every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. To close things out, I've got Riding on Water, one of the singles from Jen Kearney's EP, Atlantic. As always, keep those ears open.
Wind is strong today.